Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Either that or on the like below 5 juvenile level.
That's how I like to
It's
set
like-
my standards crazy high. Below 5 juvenile. It's the 5J.
Oh man.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah?
good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I had so much fun talking about that ridiculous film that you guys made me see. You're next on the film board.
Your favorite.
God, it was just not. It has, and sometimes these things, when we talk about the film, I like them more, and it just got worse, mostly because now it's a position of pride. It's not even pride. What's the word I'm looking for? Now I've taken it's a platform.
Stubbornness.
Well, some people say diligence and honor. Call me stubborn, but now it's mostly because you and Steve like it so much. It's now your favorite film ever, and so now I have to not like it even more.
That's right. It zipped right up to the top. So much better than Network.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I love the part with the arrows through the chairs. That was my favorite, most realistic part.
The symbolism.
I'm telling you, that was divisive. That was good fun.
It was.
And so if you haven't listened to that, everybody should go back and listen to the Film Board's latest Film Board. Film Board number 13 was You're Next.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even bother seeing the movie first. You don't need to. You totally don't need to. It'll be spoiled enough. You'll get it. I mean, you may not get it, but you'll get it. And let's see. If you haven't checked out the new post over on the blog at thenextreel.com, I can't even say it. These made-up words.
I know. Malikian brainworms.
Brainworms and other symptoms. You've seen a good movie. Another fantastic post by Sarmento.
I love the maps in that one.
Those were so
those
great.
charts. I've never seen those before, but they completely fascinate me. The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars,
yeah.
Jurassic Park, 12 Angry Men, which is just a nice, straight, simple one. Primer, Memento. It's really
Primer
cool.
cracks me up. Primer is hysterical, just knots. The other one, though, that I really liked is the Memento straight line path, which I thought was really interesting. Totally changes. That's one. It's an example of just how your perspective on a film can change by laying it out visually like this. And sometimes it gets lost because when you're writing a script, when I'm writing a narrative, right, any significant piece of work, I'm pretty old school, and I start with the 3x5 cards, and I like to move them around on a large surface, and that's just kind of how I work. And sometimes I feel like when I'm looking at something after the fact, like a finished piece of film, a finished documentary project or whatever it is, it feels somehow like other people next to me who are watching it are missing so much of the story because they're missing what I went through to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like there's so much, and I think what these maps do is they let you visualize what the creators went through to get there. To me. Particularly the Memento one, just laying out sort of scene by sequence, I thought was really powerful.
What's interesting about that one is the DVD. There's like a special edition DVD release, probably, I don't know, early 2000s, and there was an Easter egg. This was back when Easter eggs were all the rage, the most ridiculous things ever. There was an Easter egg that you could plug in this code and whatever it was, and you could actually watch the entire film chronologically.
Right. Okay.
So
I remember that.
Yeah. So you'd have the whole thing start with the black and white story, and you just see this whole phone conversation that Leonard's having in the hotel room, and that goes all the way up to where it turns to color, and then we watch everything in color all the way up through the moment when the film ends, which is really right where the movie actually begins. And it was a really interesting exercise to watch it that way, but it does kind of deflate it a little bit. It takes some of the magic of the fascinating way that Christopher Nolan used to tell the story.
Yeah. No, I can see that too.
I wasn't really surprised, I guess. It's, it's like, recutting Pulp Fiction into a chronological version and watching it. I mean, it's part of the fun of some of these stories, and part of the magic of what makes the stories work, I think, is
not knowing.
Well, and it's the way that they structure it. I think structure is such a huge element to the way a story is told, and there's a reason that a story is structured the way it is.
Yeah, well, I'm not like disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it's kind of fun.
I agree.
I can tell you're in a hostile mood tonight.
Let's talk about your next again.
So definitely, you know what, people, you should check out thenextreel.com. That's really what the whole point of this is. And check out the blog for awesome Steveness. Check out all the shows on the Next Reel and in the Film Board. And any of our extras in the extras menu, you can check the glossary and the lists and our Flick Chart Top 100 and the legendary now at this point cost per minute breakdown adjusted for inflation.
Is it legendary? Has it reached that status?
I'm going to have to change that on the website. It's now going to be the legendary cost per minute breakdown now adjusted by inflation. That's the whole menu item.
Wow, that's
you're
awesome.
You're just going to need a bigger screen. Let's just say it that way. Our menus are the biggest.
That's right. And of course, the most important page on the website is the Contact Us page.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I should visit that, too. If you want to check out how all the different ways you can find us. And you subscribe to the show on iTunes. You could jump over to Facebook. You should do all those things. And you can really write us. You could just write us. There's a form right there. You could write us a missive. So you should do that, too. Let's talk about trailers.
A pensive missive.
I want to go first on the trailers.
You go first. I'm excited to hear your take on your trailer.
Well, I'll tell you why. And this is a little bit of a... Okay. My trailer is Jim Mickles. I've never seen anything else that Jim Mickle has done, but he has directed and co-written We Are What We Are, a 2013 drama horror thriller that is coming out at some point soon. Now, why is this film even remotely important to me? It is a drama horror thriller, and I think I'm on the record. I think people know that I'm not generally crazy about these sorts of films, particularly on the big screen. But this one I am, because I have seen the original, which was not long ago. It's 2010. It was a Mexican film. And I quite enjoyed it. Surprisingly enough, I quite enjoyed it. It's the kind of drama horror thriller that I really like, and I love the way they handled it in this in the Mexican original film. I can't talk about any of it because I'm eager to spoil. I'm sort of wired to spoil, and so I'm just not going to say anything other than go to thenextreel.com and you're looking at the at this week's the current episode show, and you will see the trailer for We Are What We Are. You should watch it. It looks great. It looks like a it looks taut. It looks sort of grim. It doesn't look. It's not a slasher type of a vibe to it. It has a much more sort of intense, kind of grounded vibe. The way they're treating this material, it looks very sort of haunting family horror. And if you know the twist, you'll see that it is, it looks like they're treating it fairly delicately. And so I'm excited to see it. My hopes are high. It's not good, but I'm very excited to see it.
Is it?
And I haven't heard anybody else in it. Like I don't know who. Kelly McGillis. Kelly McGillis.
Yeah.
Check that out. I totally know her.
Yeah.
Who is this Kelly McGillis?
Who the heck is she? The guy who plays the dad is in Boardwalk Empire,
which I don't watch. Which I should.
I don't either. One of the daughters was in The Master. Another daughter was in Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, and she's going to be in the Sin City sequel coming out soon.
Yeah. See, nothing. I got nothing for that. So I'm mostly excited. What Amber Childers looks like was in Gangster Squad too. I totally missed that. And all my children.
And good old Michael Parks.
Yes, that's true. Too. So I knew. It turns out I lied just then. It turns out I actually do know quite a few people.
but it's more of the character actors, and so that's why I think that they don't stand out quite as much in this.
Yeah, and actually, to your point, Michael Parks actually looks great.
Yeah,
in this film, was like the medical examiner kind of a character. So I'm very excited about this. I mean, you've seen the trailer, doesn't it look interesting to you?
It looks great. It looks really creepy. It looks like it's got a nice pacing going on through it. I mean, something with the trailer, just it feels like very kind of this psychological look at this situation rather than over the top horror, Now
tell me, when you're watching this trailer, that you weren't really, riveted. When I watched the trailer, I wanted to see more of it. Like I found myself totally into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally wanted to go find a bootleg copy on the internet and watch it right now.
But you would never do that because, you like film industry people to work.
That's
feed
right.
Their families.
That's right.
Hypocrite. Raging hypocrite.
I really don't do that. You.
Let's talk about yours.
Wait,
so I have no date. I don't know when it's 2013.
It opens select theaters September 27th. I'm looking at the website, which is parkerfamilytradition.com.
Please. Nerd.
What is the period that this takes place in? That was my question with your trailer.
It looked like hillbilly contemporary.
Yeah, it looks like a period film, but set present day.
Yeah.
There's something interesting about the way they shot it, where it looks period, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah. ParkerFamilyTradition.com.
Because that's the well, I can't forget it. Yeah. Stop talking.
That's okay.
Stop talking about it because it's got. Go to your trailer, please.
Yes. Okay. my trailer this week is it just came out this week. It's the new Matthew McConaughey diet film, Dallas Buyers Club. This is his version of The Machinist, where he decided to lose a ridiculous amount of weight in order to portray this role of Texas electrician Ron Woodruff, the rodeo guy from the 80s. And he's this guy who ends up finding out he is HIV positive in the mid-80s. And he basically has to try finding a way to survive. This is the early days of AIDS, and his doctor doesn't give him much of a length of time to live. And so he ends up going down to Mexico, crossing the border to buy the drugs that he needs down there. And in the process, he realizes that there's this whole business opportunity in this. This is based on a true story. There's this whole business opportunity of supplying this drug that a lot of people need and bringing it up into the States. And the only reason that they don't have it in the States is because it's not FDA approved. So he basically starts this whole place to buy these drugs that help people who have AIDS and help them feel better and survive their disease a little longer. So very interesting looking trailer. I was really surprised by McConaughey in it. I think that something about him and it's almost like since Lincoln Lawyer moving forward, he's been doing nothing but very wise choices, and I really enjoy watching him on screen right now.
I don't think you can talk about this film without mentioning Jared Leto.
Well, and that's the other thing I was going to say is I didn't even recognize that Jared Leto was in this trailer. Normally, I can pinpoint anyone in a trailer. I'm really spot on at picking people out. I didn't even recognize him until his name popped up, and it really floored me. It surprised me. He is a transvestite that kind of partners with McConaughey's character as they start bringing these drugs into the country. And I was completely surprised by him in this performance. I think it's a marvel. I'm really excited to see what he brings to the role.
Who's going to win an Oscar for this?
Well, it is coming out award season. It opens November 1st. So they're definitely going to be pushing award nominations for, I'm sure, those two.
Those two, certainly.
Yeah.
Who else? Jennifer Garner is in it. And
Steve Zahn is in it.
Right.
Dennis O'Hare is his doctor. Griffin Dunn is in it. I mean, it's a good cast. I'm quite looking forward to this one.
I think it looks great. And, I it's sort of the, if you really want to like Breaking Bad, but you don't like the fact that it's meth, you should see this movie.
Right. Because this is a good drug.
This is a good drug movie, yeah.
There you go. That's a way to sell it.
Yeah. It's like Breaking Bad with, good drugs.
Oh, man.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Let's, I think we're finished with old business, new trailers.
I think so.
Let's talk about this film. We are continuing our series. We're right in the middle of our series. The drama of the Brothers Coen. And tonight we are looking at Barton Fink.
For the first time in the history of the Cannes Film Festival, one film has swept all the major awards. Barton Fink.
Los Angeles, Mr. Fink.
Excuse me?
Howdy, neighbor.
Are you a writer, Mr. Fink?
Actually, I'm writing for the pictures now.
Oh, it's an exciting time then.
Is that him? Is that Barton Fink? Say whatever the hell you want. The writer is king here at Capitol Pictures. We're only interested in one thing. Can you tell a story, Bond? Can you make us laugh? Can you make us cry? Can you make us want to break out, enjoy a song? Is that more than one thing? Okay.
This is a tricky film to figure out how to market. I don't envy anyone trying to cut a trailer together for this film. I guess I don't know what you're selling. It's such a strange movie.
Now, as we listen to that trailer, like my first thought is, God, I can't wait to see The Great Gatsby. Like, it looks like an energetic period film about Hollywood and, wah-da-doo-da. And it looks like a very exciting film. It's not that film.
It really isn't. It really isn't. But at least they sell the Cannes Film Festival sweep of the 3 awards in the trailer, which really surprised me. I'm like, was that a big thing back in the 90s? That wow. Did the average American go, oh, look at that? Oh, honey, look.
Oh, Cannes.
It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Let's go.
Totally Cannes. No, you're absolutely right. I think there's I think they were quite obviously challenged with marketing this film, and I wonder if the Coens had a problem with that. It seems like this was a movie that came out of a different place than a lot of their other films, and at least in terms of the creation of it. And there's this fantastic quote from the brothers who, talk about just the way their films come together. And that some of their films, come together. They're quite a struggle, like Miller's Crossing was a struggle to write just because of the complexity built into it. But in this one, the quote is fantastic. With Barton Fink, we just sort of burped out Barton Fink, right? And that, I think I mean this in a complimentary fashion, but that's exactly the feeling I get when watching it.
Yeah. that you are watching someone's burp.
This is a creative burp in their otherwise fantastic work. Now, I say that as if I'm going to come out and say I suddenly didn't like it, and that's absolutely not the case. I quite like Barton Fink, and it is maybe the exception to the Angry Pete rule of popcorn movies. I do quite enjoy this film, and I like what they do. I particularly like John Turturro's performance and John Goodman's performances in these films. But much of the film, the reason I like the film so much is that it's a film that exists on so many symbolic planes. Yeah. And many of them don't necessarily intersect. I love that you can look at this film from so many different angles and get a lot out of that vision. So, but I'm curious what you thought. Now, this was one that you had said you didn't like as much, and on reviewing it, did you get anything more out of it?
Yeah, this this is a film that I watched. I got to the end. I'm like, I don't know if I really know what this movie is about. It's such a strange movie. But here's the thing: is there's so much interesting stuff going on all through the film that I still liked it, and my memory of it was I didn't like it very much. I came out of it liking it and enjoying it, and I think I would happily go back and watch it again and revel in the strange mysteries of it. It's like going back and watching a David Lynch movie like Mulholland Drive or something. There's just like what is all this weird symbolism here? I wrote a list out of just crazy symbols and things that we don't have to talk about, but I think that there's just so many things that you could say about all of these things. Okay. Let me just read through my list.
I want to see if your list looks like my list.
Shoes. Heads. Sounds. Mosquitoes, wallpaper, Ear pus. Crashing waves. Weight descending. The Common Man. December 7th, 1941. Hell. Nazis, Germans, Italians, and the Holocaust. Muses and Women. Fire and Water. Sweat and Heat. Wrestling. Reality versus the mental state, i.e. life of the body versus life of the mind. The Box. Sex and Violence. The Number 6. And Pelican Dives.
Okay. Did you say heaven and hell?
Well, I said hell.
Okay.
I did say hell. I didn't say heaven.
Okay.
I didn't see much of heaven.
Well, and there's this sense of honesty versus ethics, and that for me is just a connection that I made based on our conversation last week over Miller's Crossing. You said sex. I would say sexuality in particular. Sex. He's a man. We wrestled.
Which actually is something else, is homosexuality,
right.
Which is something interesting between these last two films.
Yes. Okay. So there was that. Let's see. You talked about religion, right? Did you talk about specifically religion and the Redeemer?
I didn't say that.
Okay. Well, that's on my list. So we have quite a list. This is going to be about a 7-hour show. So.
Yes.
How would you like to start?
Gosh, I don't know.
That's the trick about this film. It is on the surface, right? It is a film about a writer, and this gets to, I think, the high level of the Coen gestalt, right? Typically, we've talked about this before. The Coen brothers talk about the sort of everyman, the common man, and that's certainly a major theme in this film. But the protagonist, one of the things I love so much about Turturro's role as the writer, as Barton Fink, is that he is portrayed in the beginning as not to steal something from Miller's Crossing, but as a made man in the arts, right? He's on the heels of a fantastic premiere of his great opus, and as such, he is invited to join the contract staff of writers for in Hollywood for this film production outfit and a studio in Hollywood. And so what we see in the transformation from Barton in New York to Barton in California is essentially the fall of man, right? I mean, that's the fall of Barton Fink as he comes to this realization that now he is suddenly in a whole new element and facing a whole new challenge. And that is sort of the way, to me, it feels like we fall into a Coen film, right? It opens with something different, but now he gets to California, he goes into the Hotel Earl, and suddenly he realizes that he is essentially on the streets here, and in completely unfamiliar territory. I love the way the film opens that way.
And it's funny that, just as an aside, but it's funny that you said he's on the streets here when we never see anyone on the streets at all in LA. It's always, in places, except for when they are picnicking at Griffith Park.
Right.
But otherwise, it's always just interiors.
Interiors, and in the most uncomfortable interiors. For lack of hyperbolic speech here, there's incredibly uncomfortable interiors. It's always hot. It is so hot that, in fact, the 1941 wallpaper glue is melting and the wallpaper is peeling off the walls.
Mm-hmm.
It ends up being this just sort of horrific hot place, and the comparison of the Hotel Earl to hell is not lost, certainly not lost on the Coens, who said, we were on the set of Blood Simple, I think they said, and we're on the set of, we're shooting Blood Simple, and we came to this hotel, and it was like, wow, talk about hotel hell.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly they had a set for Barton Fink.
Yeah.
So there we are in the hotel. What do you think about the hotel, the set?
With Chet, the bellhop.
Chet, the bellhop.
When we first meet him, he rises up out of the floor through a trapdoor, holding a shoe with its sole pointed at us.
Exactly.
And what does he, we only see him, I think, one other time. Is that right?
Right.
And that's when he's walking with his cart down the halls, collecting people's souls. Essentially.
Shoes. Right. And so what do you think of that? Is it too on the nose, the hell references here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, yes, it is too on the nose, but not in a way where because everything else is a little obfuscated as far as what all of these crazy symbols mean and what's really going on here. It's not so on the nose that it turns it into something that's just kind of a trite symbol. It actually creates a feel and a changing feel for us over the course of the film. You introduce somebody like Charlie, played frighteningly and fascinatingly by John Goodman, who is such a great character, and he's so fun to watch, and the interesting transformation he has, and just the nature of his character, everything about his character, and how it almost is like he is a part of this hotel. And he says something at some point about how he's home or whatever, and it makes it sound like this hell that he's comes from as this crazy serial killer is, I mean, it really is an extension of him, or it's an extension of if it's all in Barton's head, it's an extension of what his interpretation of the common man is, or something. And that's why I don't think it's too on the nose for saying, yes, this hotel is a representation of hell, because we don't really know what that means in the context of the film. You can look at it so many different ways.
Yeah, and for me, I'd go even further. I mean, I really, in that context, okay, on that plane, as if we're saying that the Hotel Earl is hell, then to me it is not an out of place assertion to say that that Charlie is the devil in this hell, and he takes a real sort of intimate kind of ownership of it at the end, which I love so much. But I want to save this point for a little bit later. At the end, as the hotel is sort of engulfed in flames, but not destroying itself. Right, there are no pieces kind of falling out. Everything's just on fire.
Yeah.
Charlie comes in, unlocks the door, and walks very calmly into his room, as if again he's home. He owns it. This is his. Yeah. This is his most comfortable, his best space. And Barton, and he even says so. Barton, you are a guest here. Right, and you come into this place and complain to me about the noise and say that I'm too loud. That ends up being a much more profound kind of a sequence once you accept the fact that this is, whether or not it's in his head, this is Barton's hell. He has inhabited this place to go through a particularly difficult journey. Now, on the point of shoes, the shoes and feet symbology, I think, is fantastic in this connection. Shoes are the symbol of sort of the journey, right? The symbol
right.
of the precious journey and an arduous journey. And Alia, her name is I'm gonna mess this up. Alia Whiteley wrote on Den of Geek very recently, in April of this year, a post on the symbolism of shoes, and she has this to say, which I thought was really interesting in the context. She was writing, outside of the context of this particular film, but her post was specifically on the symbolism of shoes in movies. And she writes, once you run out of shoes, really the journey is over, and that's the sense that I get as Chet is walking down the hallway picking up shoes. This sense of this is where the journey is ending for some of these people.
Yeah.
And to add to that, we have to the religious mythology, and I know I'm totally rambling on this, but I told you I'm excited about this film. He goes to meet the producer at the pool. He goes to meet the studio chief at the pool to pitch his film. He needs to hear the film, and the studio head gets down on his knees and picks up his feet and kisses his shoes. Right, and to me, you get this sort of sense of honor thy creator. That is, here we're setting up this sense of Barton as the creator of universes, right? As as the writer, kind of the powerful, and that is to me the character he would take in his own head, and this is just a character that is struggling,
and a character that fascinatingly proclaims to be fascinated and want to speak for the common man and wants to tell the stories of the common man. But he writes this play in New York about his interpretation of the common man. Is the audience full of common men? No, it's full of all of the hoity-toity rich people that go to these shows. So it's people who are looking at the common man through this window. Like, none of them really know what the common man is. And then when he gets to Hotel Earl and he meets Charlie next door, John Goodman's character, who essentially is the representation of the common man, he goes on and on about, what is that line that he says? Charlie, who is the common man, says, I could tell you some stories. And Barton says, sure you could. And yet many writers do everything in their power to insulate themselves from the common man, from where they live, from where they trade, from where they fight and love and converse. And so naturally their work suffers and regresses into empty formalism. And I'm spouting off again, but to put it in your language, the theater becomes as phony as a $3 bill. And it's just so funny because Barton doesn't even realize that that's exactly what he's doing. He's insulating himself from this common man who's right here with him, who says, I could tell you some stories, and Barton doesn't even want to listen to the stories.
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. You're totally right. And I think John Goodman plays that so well in that sequence because he has this series of sort of like one after another of these half-start, double-take moments where he's trying to start telling a story, but he just can't do it over Turturro talking about the common man. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And to me, this is another sort of an epic test, right? It's that sort of Homeric, if we're looking at Turturro on his sort of Homeric journey of discovering the heroes inside of himself. This is sort of the first opportunity to try and understand his relationship with the common man, which ultimately culminates in having to be slapped in the face with it. In one case, literally, as he comes to, as Charlie is slapping him in the face in the bathroom. But in the end of the film, and this is the point I was going to make earlier, because we have this this final ultimate display of physical dominance as Charlie gets down on his knees and physically breaks the bars to free Barton from his handcuffs. At this point, he's handcuffed to the bed, and we have both this sense of physical closeness that these two men have not had since the wrestling experience, right?
Right.
But we have it in such a way that demonstrates the power of Charlie in a way that Barton had not yet experienced. Yes, they had the wrestling thing, but that was sort of a different context. And now we have look at what the common man is capable of, and you missed it the whole time, you idiot.
Yeah.
The dance is another, the USO dance is another great example of him being right in between these surrounded by these sailors about to ship off. Right. And speaking to them derogatorily, calling them, this is my dance, sailor, you kind of talking down to them, not realizing at all that this is the common man, that this is who he's trying to portray, and that he's so disconnected, he has no sense that these guys are about to go lay their lives on the line for him.
Yeah. Which, speaks to a couple interesting points that, he's Jewish, and that's brought up time after time in this film. Not just him, but all the Jews. They are always insulting each other, and just it's always pointed out.
They're really hard on each other. They're really hard
on each other, and it's right at and we see it. I think that the date is it. I can't remember. I don't think it's the slate on the wrestling picture, I believe, that has the date, and it's December 7th, 1941, as I recall. At least that's what sticks in my mind. I know that date pops up somewhere in the film. And so this is clearly happening at a very critical time in World War II. And the fact that he is just so oblivious to that. as a Jewish person working in America, he just has no idea, and he's so disconnected. And you're right, with these sailors, he's just so stuck in his own world and his own life that it's just it's almost you want to slap him.
Oh, truly. So the gosh, I feel like we could talk about this for days. The other point that I think is that I wanted to talk about with relationship to Charlie is this idea of the mystery box.
Yes.
What's your take on the mystery box?
That's a very interesting one, because it's never revealed what's in this mystery box that Charlie gives to Barton, but it's right after the muse, what's her name? I'm blanking on her name right now. Judy Davis. She is the secretary / lover / wife, I think, of W.P. Mayhew, played by John Mahoney, who's another writer not very happy with his place in the Hollywood system. And she ends up over at Barton's. She's kind of trying to help him out. They sleep with each other. He wakes up in the morning next to her, dead and bloody. Charlie takes her out of the room. And I think it's the next time we see Charlie, he gives him this box that's wrapped up in the brown paper and all strung up and taped up and everything. And it's the perfect size for a head.
Well, and this is right after the police, right? They come clean, or they come and tell Barton, who this guy is.
Yeah, and they show him the newspaper, because then also Mayhew is also missing.
Yes.
With his head missing, or he's not missing. His head is missing.
His head is missing.
He's found with his head missing. So there's two possible heads that could be in this box. If it's a head, I mean, my assumption has always been that it's a head. And I don't know if it's the head of his muse, but once he puts that box next to his typewriter, he starts flowing, like the words start flowing from him, and he is finally able to write his script. He gets out of the writer's block that he's stuck in, and he can tell his story. Now, if that means that it's her head because she's his muse, maybe that's what it means. I don't know. It's a pretty morbid way to look at it.
I know. It feels so much like there are so many ways to look at this. To me, the connection between Charlie and his relationship with Barton at this point in the film is fascinating. That Barton he's becoming aware of who Charlie is or may be, and he's horrified by that fact. And yet, Charlie, in this way, becomes his redeemer. Right? Again, it's this motivation that this potentially this head in a box on the desk is the motivation that Barton needs to get over his slump. That he is motivated in this sense by the grotesque of what is in that mystery box, and we never find out. But at the end, as Goodman walks down the hall, he turns and he says, "By the way, the box." As he nods to his head, he puts his hand to his head and he says, "It wasn't mine." Now, as we read that as a kind of gentle salute, but that motion of tapping his head is not lost on us at this point. And they want us to have this sort of grotesque relationship, it feels to me, but it could be anything.
Yeah, and this from a man who is constantly talking about his head, or keeping your head, or losing your head, or I
know what it's like when things get clogged up at the head office.
Yeah, at the head office. It's just like he's bringing it up all the time, and then it really ties in that this whole thing is this head, and it's this something about your brain. And interestingly, the head and the heart came up quite a bit in Miller's Crossing, and keeping her head, and the hat, and what the hat represented, and he needed to kind of keep his head and all that. And it's another interesting look at it here, and the nature of keeping your head, and this whole idea that Barton brings up, and then of course Charlie brings up again at the end, the whole the life of the, or the, what is it, the life of the mind?
Yeah.
I'll show you the life of the mind.
I'll show you the life of the mind. Yeah.
Yeah. and the life of the mind versus, I guess you could say in a way that's kind of what Barton represents, and Charlie more represents the life of the body, or the working man, or the common man, and that battle between the two, the mind and the body, and I don't know. I'm not really sure what else to say. It's a fascinating balance between those two, and the fact that Charlie is the one who has puts this box in his hand that is his inspiration, I think, is a very interesting element of the film.
It certainly is, and I love that last line as he's screaming down the hall, and the flames come up behind Charlie, and he's screaming, "Look upon me, I'll show you the life of the mind. Look upon me." Again, kind of hearkening to that religious language, but I think what it demonstrates, and the final exchange between Charlie and Barton demonstrates, is that, in fact, Charlie, with all of his simplicity that we've sort of seen, is a source of great power and great complexity, and that this ends up being the ultimate motivator for Barton to write essentially his cursed work, the best thing he's ever written that will never be used. Ends up being the bittersweet kind of challenge at the end of the film.
Yeah.
I love that about this film.
Then interestingly, he doesn't take any ownership of it at the end, which I also think is interesting. It's like he's the writer, he's the one who has the life of the mind. At the end of the film, when the woman on the beach asks him what's in the box and is it his, he says, "It's not mine. I don't know whose it is," or whatever he says, and I don't know what's in it. It's like now he's completely disconnected from it. I don't know. It is really fascinating, and one of those reasons why I found this film so much more interesting than I remembered it being.
I'm so glad to hear that. That makes my night here. I love this sense of honesty in this film, and it's there's a bit of a speech about honesty and what it would be like. This is the studio chief, talking about what it'd be like if he wasn't honest. You have to have honesty. Well, I mean, sort of. I mean, not in this town with all the sharks swimming around, but mostly you have to be honest. And so, there's this. I'm sensitive to honesty and ethical monologues in Coen Brothers films now, I think.
And from the character who at the beginning we think is being honest with Barton, saying, it's about the writer. The writer is king. We praise the writer.
Only to see at the shoes of the writer.
Exactly. Only to have him totally turn his back on him at the end for being honest and for telling an honest story. As far as we know, it is Burly Man, the script that he writes, and he is totally basically destroyed by the studio head at the end of the film, saying, we're gonna keep you contracted to write with us, and we're never going to do a thing with anything you write. It's like the death of a writer, being forced to write and not have anything put out there. We've talked about how Hollywood does that to people. I mean, it's not far-fetched. And there's this interesting look at the honesty of Barton's words versus the honesty of what people want. And in a way, it kind of goes back to Sullivan's Travels, and how that was a director who wanted to make a picture that meant something, only to realize that what the pictures that meant something were these kind of lower level crass films that just made people laugh, because that's what the people really needed. And you get this character, Barton, who is disconnected from the common man and doesn't really know what the common man wants, which is probably these awful Wallace Beery wrestling pictures that they're making. Right. And he writes something that is, quote unquote, telling the truth and honest, but it's not something that people want. They want to forget it. They want these B pictures.
Okay. The last note that I wrote down about the film before we start talking about the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's another. I thought was a really nice touch, likely not intended, but a really nice touch to represent the disconnect of the common man. And it's at the end in the fight when Army and Navy get in a big fight in the USO dance.
Mm-hmm.
Everything kind of gets slow, but the music doesn't stop. It is not affected. The band plays on, and to me, that just is yet another example of the disconnect of artists from the common man at the time, right? I mean, there was this sense that in Barton's life, in that universe, that point just gets hammered home in every element, and that sort of leads to this other point that I am also excited to talk about, which was the use of sound in this film.
Yeah, the sounds it was so fascinating listening to this film, and just every time another sound would come up, it just really blew me away what they were doing with the sound, whether it's the mosquito or any time his door opens into his hotel room, you get that whoosh sound of the air, like he's in this compressed compartment or something like that. You know, the sewer and the drain and the neighbors. You've got Charlie on one side sobbing or whatever he's doing the one time, and then you've got the people having sex on the other side. You've got the trumpet, the fire, the ocean. There's just so many.
Mosquito.
Yeah, the mosquito humming, the buzzing sound. Just everything is just overwhelming with these amazing sounds. The waves crashing,
Every creak, every slap, you hear John Goodman's jowls jiggle, like the sounds of saliva. When he discovers his muse in bed with him dead, and he moves her just a little bit, you hear the squeeze of the blood coming out from her, from under her on the mattress. It's really such amazing attention to detail about the sound. What do you think? What is your sense for motivation and what the intensity of the small sounds represents in the film?
That's a good question. I think on some level it represents, it's one of the senses, and it's a film about sensing things, and these sensations for this guy who's not connected to his senses, and he at a certain point actually tries to block all of this out and put himself in his own bubble, not just the sounds, because he puts these cotton balls in his ears so that he can focus on his writing, and he doesn't want to hear the phone and everything else, but also, he's disconnected from his senses of, I'd like to think, the smell of the bloody mattress laying in his room as the heat is heating up. You've got the tactile senses of the wallpaper oozing and the ear pus oozing out of John Goodman's ear. Just like the visual stuff of the fire and the water, and just to me it seems very sensual. Not using it in any sort of a sexual way, but just sensual as in stimulation of the senses, and a person who is focused on telling a true story to the point where he's actually disconnected from his senses and actually wants to cut them off.
Yeah, I think that's very much along the lines of my sense of the sound is insofar as he is feeling everything else. There's this an amazing sense of touch in this film, and that's a hard thing to do in film. But because of that sensate approach, when he stands up on the mattress and pushes the wallpaper back up onto the wall, and then turns around and looks at his fingers, not only do you hear the squishing and slurping sound of the glue, you're feeling it in his fingers, and it is such a sort of a beautiful and disgusting kind of close up on his hands that we're sort of in his sense of touch. And to me, I think that sound just magnifies all of the other sensory experiences we're getting in this film.
Yeah, and film is a great medium to really play with the auditory world, and I think the way that they used the sounds to really amplify all of these external elements, essentially kind of coming at Barton and putting him in a place where he wants to shield himself from it, I think was very effectively used.
Yep, absolutely agree. Here's an interesting thing. This film is, I believe this one, correct me on this is the first one that Roger Deakins took over as cinematographer, right?
It is the first one that he took over because Barry Sonnenfeld at this point was busy prepping his directorial debut, The Addams Family.
in I found a YouTube video. There's a 41-minute BBC YouTube video that chronicles the Coens, but it was right around the time of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and Deakins, who also did that film, is on screen, and he says, this film is very different than Barton Fink. In Barton Fink, it was amazing. Out of, we shot for 8 or 9 weeks, and only 9 to 12 shots total didn't make that film.
Jeez.
And his point here was that, even in a film that is as sort of ideologically complex, these guys are absolutely meticulous about what they bring to the table to shoot a film.
Well, yeah.
And I had not made that connection. I know you've watched a lot of more of the behind the scenes stuff than I have. This is all probably news to you, or not news to you, but it was news to me just how intentional they are with just how they set up the film, start to finish, before they even get to production. And I think this is a movie that, to me, reads very much as watches very much as testament to that. I mean, it is ideologically, again, meticulous.
It's something that I think that they've. I know the style is very different from Barry Sonnenfeld to Roger Deakins, and obviously the film kind of dictates that to a certain extent. But I think in both cases you do see that that preparation and the detail and kind of the planning that they go through, because everything feels so intentional in their films, and it all just really feels like it needs to be there, and everything just comes across the right way, I think. I mean, I think it all feels spot on planned. Yeah.
Me too. It is beautiful and elegant, and not maybe this comes at a cost, but at least in this film, there is it doesn't feel spontaneous.
Well, I think the thing is, when you're making a film, I mean, these are writer, director, producers. They are essentially the decision makers of everything about the story that's happening in their film. Right. They've written it, they've gotten the money together, and they're going to tell the story, and they're going to direct it, and they're going to make it the way that they want to make it. They should be responsible for all of that. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to let the actors bring something to the table and do some improvisational stuff to kind of find the character, or to do something that they think might help the part. That's not to say they're not going to let the sound designer, or the director of photography, or the costume designer, or any of these people throw in their 2 cents. So that's the nature of the film business, is bringing all of those elements together and finding the right way to get the message across that the directors are trying to get across. Now, like David Fincher said when we were talking about David Fincher way back, the great thing about having directorial or final cut, it's not about being this dictator and saying, well, this is the way I want it to be, and that's what I want. It's being able to have educated conversations with people, and being smart about thinking about what are you trying to get to in this story here, but being the person who is the one who gets to end that conversation. And I think that really fits for me, just from what I can tell. The Coen brothers are actually really, I guess you could say, just mysterious. They don't give you a lot of information actually on any of their discs. There's little on them. I mean, there's some behind the scenes stuff, but they don't do commentaries except for spoof commentaries, as we've discussed before. They're very mysterious, and so a lot of it is just interpretation. But that's my sense of them, is they really are the type of filmmakers who have a vision. They very much know exactly what they want to do. They're going to welcome whatever creative input they get from people, but they are the ones who say, let's do it this way.
I think as a result, I've enjoyed digging into some of these these behind the scenes in these films available on YouTube. The profiles that, as you say, they're really brief in what you actually see from the brothers themselves, but you get a lot of people talking about them with some authority, and it's been fun to through this process to watch some of that. There are there's a really interesting conversation with a film class. It's an hour long about how to start a film. And the whole thing is all about, how do you build your credits? How do you build your title sequence? How do you build your whoosh? It's a fascinating watch. I looked at it. Now I've lost it. I'll have to dig up that link and post it in the show notes.
Yeah, interesting.
So let's see. Carter Burwell on music.
Yeah, I think, again, he effectively creates a great score. He's not pulling anything like the last film. He really kind of pulled from kind of Oh Danny Boy and the whole Irish music sound. Raising Arizona, he definitely was pulling from some old-timey tracks. This is really, I think, much more of an original score, kind of like Blood Simple was, not pulling from anything in particular. He could have easily pulled from like 40s tunes and stuff like that, but it feels very much just his music. It's a very effective score for the film, and I think it's solid.
It interacts. It's one of these. There are a number of moments, for example, that interact sort of playfully with the overall sound of the film. Right after Barton discovers his muse dead in the bed, he sits down to write, and he utters these sort of a series of squeaks. That are off tempo, and there's this wonderful sense of the strings coming in between his squeaks that kind of makes that sense of mourning that he's feeling, that panic-stricken sense of loss, so much more palpable. I think there are a number of those little gimmicks in the film that I think really stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we should say, just jumping backward a little bit, but Alan Beyer is the one who he's the production sound mixer on the film, and
credit where credit is due.
That's right. He's done quite a bit of work with the Coen brothers, starting with, looks like, Raising Arizona, off and on up through The Big Lebowski. It doesn't look like he's worked with them since that, but he certainly is a busy man otherwise, working on many, many things.
What else is on your list here?
I actually think we hit it. A couple last little things that I think are interesting is one, according to the Coen brothers, that final scene where we're looking at the image of the woman. It's almost like he's finally really lost in his own mind or something, whatever's going on there. But we're seeing the woman sitting on the beach looking identical to that cheap painting that he had on the wall of his hotel room. And we see that as the last shot of the film. We see her sitting there. Everything looks exactly the same. And then a pelican comes out of nowhere and dives into the ocean, like right in the back. And then they cut. And according to the Coen brothers, that pelican just came out of the blue, was completely not planned. It was just one of those weird, happy accidents. And it's just like the strangest thing that happens. But I love that it does. And I love that that's the shot they used, because there's something off about that throws, it throws something in. And in a weird way, it kind of ties in back to the beginning of the film, where you have the first shot of this film after the credits and the wallpaper is a weight descending from the sky, essentially, and we follow this weight as it comes down in the back of the stage of the show that he's doing, and it mirrors that. And here we see now this wall portrait that's come to life of this muse or whoever it is, and we see this pelican. It's like this giant weight coming down again. It's a strange mirror, and it's amazing that ended up happening.
I also love it that the stagehand in the beginning comes out, and his part is to yell, "Fresh fish, fresh!" And as we all know, pelicans eat fish.
That's
and there's okay. That may be a stretch, but I will tell you that I totally agree with you. And had I not known that it was an accidental find, I would have thought that the intention ends up being, twofold. First of all, so that it gives you a sense that this is real. Yeah. Right? That this is not something that's just in Barton's head. That there's a sense that if it were really idyllic, if he were really finding that special kind of place of peace in his head after this ordeal, then that scene would mimic the painting perfectly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It breaks that sort of that imaginary wall between what is him and what is he's experiencing in his head and what he's experiencing. I have to add this quote that is it's on Wikipedia of the Coens. This is Ethan Coen, and to me this is sort of a way to conceptualize at least what their intention was for this reality versus headscape. Ethan says, it is correct to say that we wanted the spectator to share in the interior life of Barton Fink, as well as his point of view, but there is no need to go too far. For example, it would have been incongruous for Barton Fink to wake up at the end of the film and for us to suggest thereby that he actually inhabited a reality greater than what is depicted in the film. In any case, it is always artificial to talk about reality in regard to a fictional character, unless you're talking about Inception. But to me that sort of wraps it up. That in a nice little package. Had they gone for the more obvious dreamscape, we likely would not have been talking about the film in this. Yeah. It would not be as interesting.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah. All right.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
How did let's talk about the numbers. Do we have numbers on this?
Yeah, I do have numbers on this one. It didn't do that well. This film was made in 1991. It played at Cannes. It won the Palme d'Or. It won best directors and best actor, John Turturro, and which is actually the first time that it ever happened at Cannes. Normally, they really try to space things out. Or I guess historically, it's always been they spread out their awards a little bit. They don't focus on one film so much. But because of that trifecta that this film won, they actually established a rule that no film could get more than 2 awards now. So some strange little rule over at Cannes, yeah. But it opened at Cannes or premiered at Cannes, and then it opened in August 91. And they made this for about $9 million, and it only ended up grossing, let me see if I can find it, about $6 million, just over $6 million. So it didn't make its money back. And for a film that was 116 minutes long, adjusted, it lost about $41,464.16 per finished minute.
Oh, that would be sad.
Yeah, it's in our list of losers. But remember, these numbers really boil down to their initial theatrical run. It doesn't take into account any money that it may have made since then on DVD, on video, on Laserdisc, on theatrical re-releases, anything like that. I mean, I can't imagine this film has yet to make its money back. but some of the losers on our list, I think that we've talked about, have.
Yeah, there's on the MTV Movies blog. Did you catch the potential sequel?
I didn't catch it there. I think I read about it somewhere else. I think Wikipedia mentioned something.
They are talking about a sequel that would take place in the 60s that is called Old Fink. Ethan says, we did talk to John Turturro about during this. We want John to be old enough to do it. The brothers have even at least a baseline idea of how they would form the story. It's another 1967 movie, Joel said, in reference to A Serious Man, which was set during that turbulent period. It's the summer of love, and Fink is teaching at Berkeley. He's ratted on a lot of his friends to the House Un-American Activities Committee. He's got George Kaufman hair, but he's going gray. He wears a medallion, Ethan said.
Nice.
We told Turturro that this is one sequel we'd actually like to make, but not until he's actually old enough to play the part, Joel explained. How old is old enough, you may ask? He's getting there, Ethan said. So this, to me, reads very much as one of their fantastic, director's commentaries.
Yeah, having fun with the audience, I think, is what
I'm not holding my breath on this one, but I love the concept. And I love the idea that they would plant Barton as a rat to the House Un-American Activities Committee. I think that's really very funny.
It is. Speaking of somebody not in touch with the common man.
Shall we rank this thing?
Yeah, let's. Where can they find us?
Oh, I do that.
That's
you can find us at flickchart.com /thenextreel, and that is where you will find our ranked list of all the films that we've done on this show. It's 110?
This will be 106.
Huh. I think we're behind some then, right?
No.
I think we're missing some.
No, we're not.
How is that possible? Because we've done 13 film boards, and this is 97.
There were a few overlaps.
Ah, curses. Overlaps. Okay, fine. So you can find us there. You can also find us at letterboxd.com /thenextreel, and you can find us there for our, we got movies there too. So if you're a Letterboxd user, go over there and you'll find our lists. You'll find our, they do star rankings over there. So we got to do that too, right?
Yeah, we do that, and then you can find all of our posts from each film and everything over there too. So
Letterboxd fan, that's where you go. But you should really head over to iTunes first and foremost and subscribe to the show there, because that's where you ensure that you never miss a single episode. So
right. All right, you ready?
I'm ready, Andrew.
Barton Fink or Moon?
Barton Fink.
Yeah, I will go with Barton Fink on this one. Barton Fink or The Night of the Hunter? I am going to have to go with The Night of the Hunter on this one.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, Night of the Hunter.
All right. Barton Fink or Up in the Air?
Up in the Air.
Absolutely. Barton Fink or Sunshine? Interesting.
I do love Sunshine a lot.
Yeah.
But I think about the just in terms of the symbolic substance, the joy I get out of looking at the layers that go on in Barton Fink, there just isn't that sort of substance in Sunshine.
Yeah, I mean, there's an attempt at there's a message that Boyle's trying to get across in Sunshine. It's not quite cohesive. I think he flumbers.
He may flumber. I hope he doesn't flollop.
Or fliggers. Yeah, whatever he does. Flounder. How about that? I just like to make words up sometimes.
Nice.
Yes. So I'm going with Barton.
Okay, good. Yeah, me too.
Oh, interesting. Barton Fink or adaptation? The screenwriter versus the screenwriter.
I'm going to go with Barton here, just because generally I am more personally attracted to the relationship of Charlie and Barton in this film, but I find them both rewarding on the same level.
I feel like I would go with adaptation. The Nicolas Cage versus Nicolas Cage, I think, is fantastic. Chris Cooper is so great in adaptation.
Oh yeah,
he's such an amazing character, and Meryl Streep. Adaptation, I think is I don't know. I think that.
We didn't talk like this about adaptation. I mean, I know you're right. The performances are great, but you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I feel like I enjoy adaptation a lot more, though. Like, adaptation is a film I could so much more easily just watch and just thoroughly enjoy.
It is certainly more approachable.
Yeah, Barton Fink is a film that I won't put on that often. I think I will enjoy watching it when I do put it on.
Okay. All right. I'll give you this, and I look forward to what you're going to give up next.
That's right. Barton Fink or The Descent?
Oh, nuts.
The Descent, right?
Yeah, it's going to be The Descent. It is going to be The Descent on this one.
Oh. Don't make me give this up. Barton Fink or Field of Dreams?
Oh, please.
It has to be Field of Dreams.
You didn't even need to read that out loud. Did you see that ridiculous thing that Sarmento did to me on Facebook?
I didn't. No, I totally missed that.
I'm going to have to post that. Yeah, it's ridiculous, and this is for that, Steve. Andy, you owe me, man.
Oh, you.
Totally, Barton.
Thanks, Steve. All right, 45. Field of Dreams is 46. should be 45.
You're damned lucky it's even over 50.
Oh man.
No, that's just me being belligerent. But
you are.
I do think that was the right call. I think you earned that one. Thank you.
No, I feel like I sold out. I feel like I sold out to the common man.
To the common man. Oh man, a union boss is coming to your house tonight. I heard so. Hey, this was a treat.
Yeah. I'm glad I watched it again because it's a film that deserved to be revisited.
I am super glad to hear you say that. I call that. I'm actually going to put a notch on my desk here. The times I get Andy to soften his view on a film.
That's right.
Where do we go from here, my friend?
Well, we're going to be continuing our series, More Coen Fun, or I shouldn't say fun, More Coen Drama, because we're focusing on the drama. We're going to be going all the way up to visit the town of Fargo.
Fargo. That's next, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw this together when it came out.
I know, right? Yeah. Oh, boy, those were the days. Good night, Andy.
Night.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But you know, producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor?
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.